Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to talk about the SteelSeries Apex 9 TKL keyboard. Now this is the 10 keyless variant, that's what TKL means, so if you need the full size because you want the number pad, just get the standard Apex 9. And then the mini basically means that there's no arrow keys on the right. It's extremely compact, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. But the Apex 9 is kind of unique because it actually uses optical switches. Now I'm going to try to condense quite a bit of information in this review into a shorter format, but there's a lot to talk about. So I just want to go over the basics while I grab the keyboard. I just want to say thank you to SteelSeries. They did send this to me for review. It will not sway, obviously, what I say about it, but I do want to thank them for sending it. So I'm really happy to finally be working with more brands now that the channel's grown. So thank you so much for your subscribing and viewership and all the support along the way. I will have links in the description below. Generic affiliate links, no special kickbacks. Purchase it however you want. Okay, so covering the TKL, there's a few things that stand out in this price range. For one, the US price lists for $139.99. Now the Pro TKL has gone on sale for the same price historically sometimes. So it's important to know how it compares against the Pro because some people may actually like this variant better. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But basically you have a military grade aluminum top plate, so there's very minimal flex. I'm going to go over the physical design of the keyboard first. So these are double shot PBT caps. Now one of the biggest selling points to me and surprises, it was the PBT caps. So just getting right into it, all the keyboards I've ever reviewed or used have traditionally been ABS. Whether double shot or not, ABS has a different feel to it. I like PBT because it doesn't wear like ABS does. Quality ABS can last a long time. They also look really good with RGB, but these PBT caps shouldn't fade or start looking shiny after, let's say, a year. So whether you have something like a MacBook Pro or an old keyboard that uses ABS plastic, for example, you've probably seen that your spacebar is starting to get a shine to it, and that's just because of the keycap material. So I do want to call out the PBT. Now, as far as the design goes, it is relatively compact. The bezels are actually really thin. And I'll show you how it compares against a Rockhat Vulcan keyboard. The volume wheel on the top right also doubles as an action key, so I can press this in, as a mute key, so I can press this in to mute, scroll up and down for volume, and then this button is your media key, so play, pause, double tap to skip forward, etc. Which you can customize. The USB-C port. So I like this. I'm going to grab the cable, but the USB-C cable is detachable and it's offset to the left, unlike the Pro or the other Apex line, which integrates the wire in the back and it has like a channel system so you can route it left, right, or middle. This one is fixed on the outside only, so you are stuck with it on the left side. While I have this upside down, there's 3 different height or tilt settings to look at. So you have flat, which is going to have these 6 rubber feet on it. You can flip the little feet up and that'll, kick it up at a slight angle. I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to tell based off this picture. So let's go back to flat real quick. Now I'm laying flat. I'll kick up 1 foot. That's 2. That's the angle of 1 foot. And let's do the longer one. And you can see that raises it up quite a bit. So it's all preference. It has a pretty sure footing regardless. Now what's interesting is when the feet are up, there's no rubber on the inside. Usually I see rubber on the feet that kick up, so that was kind of different. But it still didn't really slide on my desk, whether I was using it on the wood surface or a mat like this. And then the other interesting thing, so this rubber top right here is actually a cover for a keycap puller, which I haven't seen before. Obviously I don't review tons of keyboards, but I'm familiar enough with some of them. And this was a kind of a cool little hidden tool. Now this tool is all plastic, so while I found that it did a totally fine job grabbing keys, you can see how painless that was. These keys are actually pullable, so if for any reason you need to swap the keycap out, they make different key switches as well. So depending on what kind of feel you want for the key switch, you can actually remove them, and SteelSeries sells different packs online to help you customize it based off your typing preference or feel. Now, when you compare the Apex 9 to the Apex Pro series, a lot of people will assume the Pro is just better regardless, but it kind of depends on what your preferences are. For example, you might want a shorter or longer keystroke feel, and the optical switches found on the Apex 9 has a much shorter actuation point, which ranges from 1 to 1.5, and you can customize that in the SteelSeries engine software. When you look at the Apex Pro, the Pro can range from 0.4 millimeter all the way to 3.6 millimeter as an actuation point, which is basically when the key press is registered. However, it's also a dual input. So that's probably the most unique thing, because on the Pro, you could actually have it so if you're doing WASD for movement, a lighter press on W is walk, and pressing in the W harder or all the way down will actually make your character sprint if you configure it. Now, you can also, so there's different profiles and typing modes. There's game and then typing, basically. And game is your shorter actuation point, so only 1 millimeter, and typing is 1.5. I found that I pretty much had to use typing. I tend to rest my fingers on the keys more, and a 1 is really, really short and fast. So if you're concerned with accidental key presses, that's something to consider. There's no debounce either with an optical switch. So you like tap it and let go, that input's been registered. You don't have to worry about like a double press or anything. Optical is incredibly accurate and fast because it's using light instead of a mechanical switch. Now, just like the Apex Pro and the Apex 7, you also get onboard memory. So there's 5 custom profiles that you can assign to the keyboard. That's built into the keyboard. It has onboard memory. So all you have to do is press the SteelSeries icon and tap F10. In doing so, will cycle through all of your presets. Now, the Apex 9 has a lighter actuation force, so it's actually closer to the Apex 3 actuation force, which is in the 30s. So basically, you have 35 grams of actuation force on the 9. The Apex 7 is about 46, and so is the Apex Pro. They're all fairly comparable. Now, perhaps one of the biggest advantages to the Apex 9 over, honestly, every other Apex series is the response time. Because this is using optical, it has a response time of 0.2 milliseconds, which is crazy fast. And even the Apex Pro is 0.7 milliseconds. So this does offer a speed benefit purely from a response standpoint, thanks to those optical switches. Now, one of the most noticeable things from the Apex 9 versus the Pro is the actuation length, so how long the keystroke actually moves. And I'm going to show you on the Apex 9 first. So with the optical switch, it actually bottoms out above the board. You get about 66% or so of the travel distance. And on the Apex Pro, you can see it goes all the way down. So you can feel that much longer keystroke, and depending on what your preferences are, this is kind of in between a low profile keyboard and a traditional actuation length. I really do like the optical switch, and then as you saw on the spec sheet, the actuation force is lighter. So, and it's also very, very linear and fairly quiet, just like the Omni points. These are great switches. I'm not knocking the Pro at all. But it's still very easy to type on this because it has a nice consistent resistance feel, so it feels very natural. So what would a keyboard review be without a typing test? So I'm going to start with the Apex 9, then I'm going to type on the Apex Pro switches with the OmniPoint, and then I'll try a Roccat Vulcan Pro, just if you have a Vulcan Pro, or just so you can hear the difference, because it is noticeable depending on what your preferences are. So here's the TKL, or the 9 TKL. Now I'm going to type on the OmniPoint switches with the Vulcan Pro. Then I want to show you the Roccat Vulcan TKL, or the Pro TKL. Spacebar. That actually reminds me, so one thing I noticed on the SteelSeries setup, and Rockat's pretty good too, I've liked their keyboards in the past, if you've seen the other reviews, the stabilizers are freaking awesome. Like the spacebar is so linear, regardless of where you press it, and that's super important because I tend to, if I'm doing WASD, I'm pretty much always hitting the left side of the key spacebar. It's just a habit. So having that really nice stabilizer build, it's common with most higher end boards now, but I do want to call that out because it felt great. Overall, I really do like the acoustics of the Apex 9. The optical switches mixed with that metal plate and whatever dampening material they did, maybe the fact that the key presses don't fully bottom out, it all combines to a fairly good typing experience without going to like a membrane or something designed to be as quiet as possible. So I really do like the 9. I think it's actually a really good daily driver keyboard for work, but then you get that response time and all the customization for games. So I just want to show you a couple really quick things on the SteelSeries GG software to customize the keyboard. So there's 2 different areas basically you'll be focusing on. You can customize the illumination, and then you can customize keystroke function, macros, etc. What's really nice about this, and these buttons, by the way, it's kind of like if you're holding down the SteelSeries button, do you get extra functions? That's kind of like a shift key equivalent on Rockhat. So I just want to show you the configs on the left-hand side here. If you click this little settings wheel and hit edit, you can actually assign auto launch with application. So if you have different games that you have different keybinds for, that's where you can customize it. And then, like I said, depending on what you want the keyboard to do, whether it's key map or key remapping, you can save those configs, and all 5 of those are onboard memory with the keyboard itself. So you don't have to worry about SteelSeries engine software running for various commands. Now, obviously, when it comes to the RGB, that is a different story. You can, whatever RGB profile you have set to that profile. So if I switch, it'll actually change through. You can see it on the left-hand side here. I'm changing my onboard profile for the typing, but it's not affecting RGB. So I'm going to click this blue banner at the top to click here to change illumination. That's going to launch Prism. Now, this is kind of funny. So I just want to show you this whole label on the left here, Wabash and Lake. That is actually, so this looks like the Matrix, right? But it says Wabash and Lake. That's the location of the hotel in the Matrix movie, the heart of the city, I think it was. They said it was located on Wabash and Lake. So it's kind of funny that they called it that. I don't know if they just couldn't call it Matrix, but that's a nice little sci-fi nerd stuff for you. So I'm going to draw a selection box around the keyboard here because I want to highlight all the keys that I want to customize. And let's go to Vapor Dreams, which has been one of my favorites. I love that gradient. As you can tell with my background, I tend to do stuff like that. Or I can assign, different zones and do a different, not that I would recommend this, mixing it up, but you can make it. So let's do Prism on this side. And on this side, I want to do, let's go to Chasing Ghosts. So this side has this like fading effect now, but my left side is fixed. If I want to highlight it all, it's pretty easy. Let's do the warp. Where's that warp one? Warp drive, which is fairly interactive. So you can make the keyboard very customizable. You can customize each key color individually, which I like. So the one thing I will say, these PBT caps, they are very large, I guess. They're kind of sealed off for the light. So you do get some glow on the bottom side, but most of the light's coming from the top. And they do sell these like special keycaps. I think it's $30 for the kit that are open on the side. So if you don't want like a dark, more monochromatic look, you can actually customize the keyboard as well to let out more light in case you're more chasing that RGB side. So I actually really like the Apex 9. It's become my daily driver. I should have done this review over a month ago, to be honest. I've just been using it so much lately. There's 2 reasons why. I like that it's quieter than my Rockhat Vulcan lineup, and I've been using Vulcan keyboards for years. They've been my favorite of all the boards I've purchased and tried that I don't review. I just have a lot of keyboards, but I've always liked Vulcan between the RGB and the way the key switches feel. And I've been using the Apex 9 now because this one's also using optical switches. I tend to, I guess, prefer that. But the PBT caps like age really well. Like they are not showing signs of wear, and that's going to be really good for the long term. If you want to spend the least amount of possible and you want the brightest RGB, something like the Rockhat Vulcan is going to give you more RGB. To me, this is just a little bit more understated, but I'd rather, in my case, for how I'm using it lately, I really liked the PBT caps and how the board feels. And I just like that it's slightly quieter without feeling like a cheaper quiet keyboard, if that makes sense. A lot of the quiet keyboards don't really give me the same typing experience and feel. So this is getting me closer to that, but I still have a premium board to type on. So I think that says a lot about the board. Anyway, that about wraps up the review. This is a little bit of a different format. I hope you found something new about this board or I helped answer your questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I'll see you next time. Bye.